Howdy folks, Mr. Grimm here. Today I'm going to show you how to set up inverse kinematics in Blockbench. So what we are working on in this instance is a simple chain. As you can see in the outliner, each link is parented to the one above it. So link 7 is to link 6, to link 5, 4, all the way up onto 1. So what we're going to do is in link 7, we're going to place what's called a locator. So I already have locators set up in my interface here where you can select add locator. If you don't see this, if you're just in the the standard setup for Blockbench, you've never used locators before, you may need to click this 3 dots on the right hand side and do customize for this toolbar. When an object isn't in the toolbar, it'll show up when you search for it. So we'll do locator. So hit plus to add it. You're also going to want to add a null object, so be sure to add both of those and go ahead and hit close. So for link 7, this is the reason we're doing link 7 is because it's at the end of the chain, so we will add a locator there. And then we'll go ahead and jump up into the uppermost link in the group, which is link 1. This is going to be our root object, and we'll hit add null object. So we'll add this as IK controller, oops, do that lowercase, and we'll say IK locator. So now that we have that set up, you'll select your IK controller and you'll want to right click and set the target to the IK locator. So now that we have that set up, we can jump over into the animate tab. We'll create a new animation here. It doesn't really matter what you want it to be, we'll just go with a loop and we'll do looping chain. Hit confirm. We'll extend the length of the animation out to about 3 seconds, and we will select that IK controller. Now once we start moving it, you'll notice that it affects everything above it. And essentially that is all it really takes to set up inverse kinematics in Blockbench. Because it is a little more rudimentary compared to things like Blender or Maya, you'll be able to do a little bit less with it. So there's not going to be any sort of constraints that you can have, or for instance, you can't really constrain any sort of limbs or rotations. You can limit rotation of certain items, but it's pretty rudimentary. And so what I really recommend to folks is to just play around with it. Here are some examples of, or I guess an example of something that you could do with IK that would be kind of difficult to do with forward kinematics or just keyframe animating, one link at a time. It's a more complex movement. So it's got a little bit of jitter, but I think you get the general idea of this is what what it could look like. And there are certain things you can do that 100% you can't do with the keyframed animation as easily. So there are different ways to get creative with it. But this is just some examples that maybe not practical for any sort of animating case, but it does give a good explanation as to what you can and cannot do with inverse kinematics. So we're going to take a look at the dinosaur tail up here as well, and what we have here is what I guess you could call a more practical model. This is something that you'd definitely be doing some more realistic animations on. So as you can see, it's set up in such a way to where you have a root that contains everything. The body then has the tail attached to it, and the body really should have neck, arms, legs, etc. set up to it. But for now, we're just going to focus on the body and the tail. So what we're going to do is go to that end link for the tail, do the same thing where we add a locator, and it will spawn at the origin, so you do need to move it. Sometimes Blockbench has this goofy bug where it doesn't like the... I don't know what the heck that was, but we're going to move it to the end of the tail, just ever so slightly inside of it, then going up to the body. So you want to go up to the highest one in the chain that you want everything underneath it to move. So the body itself will not move, but we want every link underneath it to move. So we're going to go up and select body, insert our null object, and then take that to the end of the tail, to the close to the same position that we have our locator. So we do that, our locator, same position. So we'll do tail, IK, target, do tail, IK, control. So now that that is set up, let's let's jump into the Animate tab, and we'll take a look. We have the dinosaur idle. I created this animation earlier. As you can see right now, we have a few things on it, but we'll just select those and delete everything. So we'll grab the tail IK controller, and as we move it, oh, you know, I forgot to retarget that, so we'll retarget it, and as we move it, you can see the tail is moving. So as you see, the tail is moving. There's a little bit of progress here. So again, this is something that you'll just have to play around with and figure out what works best for you. It's always a good idea to start your character off in what's called a T-pose, which, if you don't know what that is, just Google T-pose animation. It'll show you it's just the default state where it starts, and it just helps things move a lot smoother when you get into your animating process. One of the reasons that there's a little bit of jitter on this tail with the animation is because I don't have the tail in a level, even, flat pose, where they're sort of pitched at different angles as the tail goes on. That's good for still screenshots, but when you're in animating, you want it to be just as level as possible when you start out. That way you have the highest level of manipulation. So that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please, consider subscribing, consider liking, and leaving a comment below with what you might want to see next on the channel. I don't have a lot of videos going up right now just because life is busy, but I do hope to change that in the future. We'll see if that actually happens. I make these videos because I think it's fun and I enjoy sharing my knowledge with folks. And if you know a better way to do it, feel free to comment below and maybe I'll revisit this video in the future. Thanks for sticking around. I'll see you in the next one.